Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Climate and Clean Air Coalition webinar on how to integrate waste into your NDCs. My name is Anna Maria Claymeyer, and I am working with the CCAC team, and it is my pleasure to introduce my colleague Donovan Story, who will be kicking off the webinar, giving us a introduction to what we will cover today. And we have a great selection of experts, people with fantastic experience in this area, and we hope that you will enjoy. We've received a number of questions from people ahead of time, and we're grateful for those. But if you also have additional questions, please feel free to use the chat to not only ask those questions to the speakers, but also to dialogue with other participants so that we can have a lively conversation even while we are listening attentively to the presentations. So with that said, Donovan, I turn it over to you. Donovan, you're muted.
Donovan.
Sorry. Welcome, everyone. And there was a classic old-fashioned mistake. I just wanted a bit of a retro Friday. So welcome, everyone. We've got a fantastic number of people that are joining us today, and we're also recording this important session as well. As Anna Maria said, it's the first in a series. So we'll remind you of the next webinars that are coming up as part of the series. It's some pretty exciting work that we've been engaged with our partners on integrating short-lived climate pollutants into NDCs. As everyone knows, this year is such an important year for the third round of NDCs, and we're very keen that short-lived climate pollutants, and today we'll be talking about waste, are included there as robustly as possible. So I'm going to provide the sort of contextual information and then on waste and why we're focusing on waste as a part of this series, and then I'll go back to Anna Maria and she'll provide a greater context on the guidelines themselves before we have some terrific speakers. So that's how it looks. As you can see, after me, it's a great lineup. Anna Maria will come back to you. Carolina Emaneta, we're very happy to have joined from the Global Methane Hub. Kevin Basol-Baraza is joining us from Chile as well. And we have Darius Borrelli, who's also joining us to speak on the Liberian example. So some really nice case studies from Chile and Liberia. And then we'll follow up with some Q&A. A number of you have already sent in questions, as Anna Maria said, and some really interesting comments. So if we can't get to all of those today, we'll make sure that we'll collate our responses and get them out as a part of the recording and the materials from the event. Just a brief background on CCAC. Many of you will know us, so that's terrific. We've been around for almost 15 years now, working in the space of super pollutants or short-lived climate pollutants that we'll speak of through this series. It's UNEP convened, so we're housed within UNEP, and we're a really interesting and I think very special collation, a partnership of state and non-state actors involving private sector, philanthropic organisations, local governments, primarily national governments, but also NGOs that are really working in this space. Why focus on short-lived climate pollutants? They're becoming, I think, increasingly recognised due to their importance for what's sometimes referred to as the other half of global warming, outside of CO2 emissions. They consist, as you see there, of methane, of black carbon, of HFCs, and tropospheric ozone and nitrous oxide. They are responsible for a significant proportion, almost half of global temperature rise that we've seen over the last several decades. They also have a lot of potential harmful impacts in terms of human health, particularly black carbon from open burning. We'll talk about black carbon later on in the series. But they also provide opportunities because they are short-lived climate pollutants by their very name, and they give us the opportunity while we're decarbonising economies to essentially buy time or to work on pollutants in which we can get out of the atmosphere in just a few days in the context of black carbon, but also within a decade in the context of methane, which we'll be talking about a lot today. As you can see, there's been a significant increase in methane emissions over the past centuries, and you can see the explosion in recent decades as well, and its importance in terms of organic waste. Primarily responsible for around organic waste as an anthropogenic source of methane is responsible for about 20% of methane emissions, and it's the fastest growing anthropogenic source of methane emissions. And that's why we see it as very, very important for NDCs and for our focus on methane is to really pay attention to waste and its upward trajectory. And we know, and I'll present a slide next, we also are able to project from anticipated waste streams and the nature of those waste streams, what future emissions will look like, and it's not entirely that positive. So waste, as I suggested, accounts for about 20% of anthropogenic methane emissions, and we need to significantly reduce these emissions if we're going to meet the Paris goals of the Paris Agreement, but also the Global Methane Pledge as well. But we also can see on current and projected future trends of waste and the composition, the important composition of organic waste as a part of that, what the projected consequences will be unless we change our practices. And obviously, NDCs are a fantastic strategic opportunity to address waste at this earlier stage of its significance. So when we look forward in terms of projected growth in waste generation, we can see especially the challenge that presents itself for emerging economies in Africa, particularly sub-Saharan Africa, but also Asia and Latin America. This is really where the action will be in terms of future waste systems, but they also provide an opportunity to divert from practices and to do things differently, to valorize and to be able to divert organic waste in particular away from landfills, away from methane creating atmospheres. And it provides us an opportunity also to think about waste in terms of broad climate strategy. One of the problems that we face with, of course, with waste generation is the composition, the continued composition of organic waste, but also many national goals and targets have collection as a key priority in getting up collection rates from 30, 40, 50%, particularly in urban environments, up to 80 or 90%. But this is a problem, this is a solution which also provides a significant problem, in that given the continued dependence on landfills, most of that increased collection of waste will go into environments which primarily are generating large volumes of methane. And you can see that now visually in a lot of the initiatives over the last few years through GHG-SAT and through IMEO's work, which have visualized the plumes of methane emissions at a higher level. So the waste sector has a landfill and methane problem, and we must find a way of essentially decoupling waste and waste systems to methane emissions and to dependence on landfills. The vast proportion of waste, particularly in emerging economies in the developing world, continues to end up in unmanaged and very large dump sites and landfills. Landfills themselves are a significant proportion of anthropogenic methane emissions, accounting for over half in a very sort of obviously small space. And also we have problems of open burning of waste, which is estimated to be around 40% of all waste that's generated is openly burned, including on landfills themselves as well, which presents a number of other human health and climate challenges. However, as I said, and as the guidelines really point out, and as we're trying to positively send you messages today about alternatives, is that we can project the impacts that we can take in terms of decoupling and stopping this trajectory into the future. And this is a really nice graph which you compare it, a really nice figure, and you compare it to the earlier one on CO2 emissions and methane emissions of bending the curve through particular actions, retrofitting landfills, biocovers and gas capture, composting organics, reducing the amount of food waste and loss as a proportion of organic waste, of also combining these strategies. And through the combination of these strategies, we can get organics and we can get a number of a high proportion of those organics out of the system and out of landfills, which will allow us to really positively address methane emissions. So you can see there the timeline, you can see there the opportunities that present themselves, and we're starting to see these, thankfully, increasingly in NDCs, which obviously we can move on to as a part of the series. So we can see that a high proportion of countries now are recognizing waste in their NDCs. This focuses on examples from the Latin American and Caribbean region and also from Africa in terms of looking at NDCs. But it's really interesting in how they're represented as targets and so on. And I think to some extent, I'm pretty I'm as a professional in the space, I'm pretty relaxed about how they're presented. We obviously want to increase ambition and we want to create verifiable and very detailed targets driven by data and so on. And that's ideally the space that we want to enter into. But even having waste in NDCs now, I think, is the essential first step. So we want to see waste represented in NDCs as a priority area, and then we want to see targets around that. And as you can see, there's a range of different approaches. Some of that is very much about CO2 equivalent of assessing emissions. Some of that is about reducing volumes of waste with the assumptions that that will then reduce emissions and other potential SLCP problems over time. And in some of them, say, for example, the recent example of Zimbabwe, very specific on strategies, focusing on composting and biogas and strengthening those industries to be able to address the opportunities which come from diversion and then valorization of organic waste, and particularly away from landfills. So you can see there, there's a range of strategies. Increasingly, we're seeing better data, and that's very important for a reason I'll move on to in two more slides. We've recently completed at CCAC, we've recently completed with our partners what we refer to as the waste and mitigation hierarchy, also outlining all of the kinds of possible solutions and strategies which countries can focus on in terms of avoiding, in terms of diverting and valorizing waste, and in terms of building infrastructure for the future. Of course, landfills will continue to play a role in waste management, but they shouldn't play the role, and they certainly shouldn't be the de facto fallback position for all waste. There will always be residual waste, there will always be landfills, but we want them to be last resorts in the system and cycle. So I really encourage you to look at that graphic in more detail on our website. And very finally, of course, strengthening our focus on waste is also about strengthening data, and strengthening those inventories and data is very important for the next phase of the Paris Agreement, which focuses on Article 13, which is about transparent reporting. It's focused particularly on encouraging countries to include all gases and all sectors, of which waste has a very important role to play in that. The transparency arrangements around Article 13, and particularly biennial transparency reports and the technical reviews of those inventories and reports, will really, I think, drive a much greater focus on waste and will support stronger NDCs and targets around waste as well. But they also provide a great opportunity because they allow countries to identify, in terms of their target setting, what technology, finance, and capacity gaps exist, which can be met through climate finance and other forms of support as well. We'll talk about that much more in detail through the country presentations today and also through Anna Maria's presentation. But thank you very much. Hopefully that provides a context and also is convincing to you about the significance of waste in this round of NDCs and beyond. So thank you very much for your time. Back to you, Anna Maria.
Thank you, Donovan, for that very interesting presentation. I imagine that for many of the people here, and there are over 100 participants, we're thrilled to see what enthusiasm there is for this topic. For many of you, we are preaching to the choir. You are convinced that waste is important, or you already work in the sector and you're looking for ways to influence the nationally determined contributions. So I am going to, sorry for a moment, share my screen so that we can get on with a quick presentation. Let's see here. One moment. Bear with me. Marco, I may need you to share share the presentation from your screen. If you could give me a hand. There's a block in the privacy settings for me. Thank you. Thanks for your patience as we pull up the presentation.
It should be open a bit.
Thank you. We tested all the presentations except for mine, so apologies for that. We'll have this up in just a second. Okay, thank you, Marco. All right, so what I will be talking to you about, and we'll try to make it quick, but I don't want to talk too fast, is the guidance that the Climate and Clean Air Coalition has prepared to support countries in integrating the non-carbon dioxide pollutants into their NDCs. Next slide. Under the Paris Agreement, which is part of the United Nations Framework Convention, as we all know, the Paris Agreement created the obligation for countries, every country that is a signatory to the agreement, to prepare a nationally determined contribution. That is a pledge saying what the country is willing to do to address climate change, both mitigation and adaptation, as well as countries that provide financing and technology. These are the types of details that go into their nationally determined contributions. Those contributions are updated every 5 years, and each cycle needs to be more ambitious than the first, and that's part of the agreement that parties came to in Paris. In addition, those NDCs, as they're called, are supposed to align with the Paris temperature goal, which is to prevent global warming beyond, or keep the warming well below 2 degrees temperature rise, with an ambitious goal to try to maintain that temperature rise below 1.5 degrees. As many of you are aware, surpassing the 1.5 degree temperature limit is called overshoot. And scientists are already telling us that that the world is in a context where there will be an overshoot beyond 1.5. And so reducing methane emissions, as well as the other short-lived climate pollutants, is one of the very important strategies, I would say priority strategies, to preventing additional temperature rise and bringing the overshoot down below 1.5 as quickly as possible. In addition to the Paris Agreement, there have been subsequent decisions under the Paris negotiations, and those decisions have given countries specificity about how do they shape their NDCs. The first round of NDCs, pretty much every country was different, but now there are some parameters, sort of instructions, sometimes referred to as the rule book, that give countries indications about what they should include and how to include it. And most recently, now in this round of NDCs, countries must include all of the greenhouse gases and across all sectors and categories. And so we should be seeing in this NDC 3.0, as it's referred to, this new round of NDCs that is due before the climate COP30 in Brazil, we should be seeing countries bringing much more detailed NDCs. Donovan told us about the transparency requirements, and you'll notice that the requirement of all greenhouse gases, economic sectors, and categories in the NDC matches those transparency requirements, because the reporting is really to ensure that countries are delivering on their pledges, and that the world therefore moves forward in terms of meeting those Paris goals. Notably, at the recent COP in Egypt, there was an energy package in the global stocktake outcome. The global stocktake is also part of the Paris Agreement that ensures greater ambition every 5 years. It's a way to verify that countries are moving forward. That outcome indicated specifically that methane should be a part of the greenhouse gas emission reductions that all countries include. Next slide, please. So in the guidelines that the Climate Clean Air Coalition has put together, it's a 5-series package of guidance documents. There are 4 building block recommendations. The first is that countries ensure that they include an economy-wide target, and then specific goals and measures on not only the carbon dioxide emission reductions, but on all of the non-CO2 pollutants across all sectors. So now we're focusing in on methane in the waste sector. The other recommendations that we make from CCAC is that countries integrate air quality planning and into their climate strategies, because the air quality planning supports the co-benefits that can be brought from mitigation across these different pollutants. And in the waste sector, we see a lot of those potential benefits by integrating and taking a big picture approach. Countries can leverage financing for climate change and air quality to meet those goals, but also ensure that they are not duplicating efforts across ministries or across different partners and stakeholders. Another important opportunity that CCAC encourages countries to look into in their NDCs is to harness related global, regional, and national strategies. So there are regional and international agreements and initiatives that address waste that aren't necessarily under the Paris Agreement or under the United Nations Framework Convention, but that can support countries in their efforts to both strengthen their NDCs, but particularly to implement those NDCs. And Donovan also pointed out the importance of data collection, monitoring, and verification. This is one of the biggest challenges, particularly for developing countries. And so those associated or parallel processes are places where countries can harness those the experience of and expertise of other institutions, other processes, and other initiatives to support the information needed to have ambitious pledges and also to implement those pledges under the Paris Agreement. So it's kind of weaving it all together to provide a supporting environment, our enabling environment. And then the third is to ensure that comprehensive reporting on all of the non-CO2 pollutants, which is, again, what Donovan referred to as part of the transparency framework, is making sure that countries have strong reporting. And I would add to Donovan's important points on the transparency requirements that with good reporting and good access to information included in those transparency reports, countries can increase their confidence and their trust in their own systems that they will be able to implement the measures that they are taking. So it's also a self-supporting let's say relationship between the reporting and the pledges. Next slide, please. So as regards methane, in the NDC guidance, we strongly encourage countries to incorporate their specific targets, make sure those targets are clear, that they are specific to the sector, and that's the reason why we're deep diving here into the waste sector. That you're leveraging co-benefits to health and also the environment, pointing out those co-benefits in the NDC is useful, but it's particularly useful when trying to advocate in country to ensure that the NDC is more ambitious within the sector. When our government partners can evaluate and quantify the co-benefits from additional measures in the waste sector, they will be more encouraged to take higher ambition and be more specific about the cuts and measures they're willing to take in the next NDC. Engaging stakeholders across the country and particularly looking at subnational and municipal level in the waste sector is important, because that is where the implementation will take place, and that effective implementation is what the end game is, to ensure that countries are able to deliver on their pledges, and also then to build upon that success and then increase the ambition in the next round of NDCs. Next slide. Just a quick look at what the NDC development cycle looks like. It's quite diverse and it's connected. It's never ending. In that because of the 5-year cycling, even when countries are already in the implementation stage, they will be reporting, assessing, and preparing for the next round of NDCs. The CCAC guidance focuses on information collection, the assessment, consideration of outputs, and provides specific recommendations on what countries can include in their NDCs, as well as suggestions and recommendations in terms of the transparency and reporting. Next slide, please. Just a quick overview then of what some of those recommendations look like in the guidance, and at the end of the presentation I have provide a link for you, so if you aren't familiar with the guidance you can access it. First and foremost, countries should include quantitative goals that are clear, that are measurable. For example, a 40% reduction of methane in the waste sector by 2030, and we see countries moving towards those broad goals in countries where they can quantify their baseline and then clearly set targets that can be measured based on actions. Sector-specific strategies such as landfill methane capture, organic waste, and Donovan mentioned some of these as well, and we're going to hear examples from countries after this presentation, so I won't go into too much detail. And then to reiterate, the assessment and the promotion of those co-benefits, which really are part of what help advocate and convince both the government partners, but also the implementing branches of within the waste sector that they can and that they should in fact increase their ambition. Next slide, please. Just a quick overview of some of the co-benefits that CCAC and its partners have assessed. In terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, there are many co-benefits to working in reducing emissions in the waste sector, and I'm sure you're all familiar with most of these. But to point out a few, the opportunities for energy security, opportunities for improved air quality, and sustainable urbanization, etc. Next slide, please. We will hear from a number of countries on their experiences, but I wanted to include in the presentation for your reference later on a few examples that we've seen in Colombia, how they've included the waste sector in their NDCs, specifying local action to supporting municipal projects. In Indonesia, the inclusion or the commitment to create a long-term strategy for low carbon climate resilience that includes landfill gas capture and reuse. And in Côte d'Ivoire, where the country has begun with the Global Methane Initiative, a process to estimate national mitigation potential to clarify that baseline, and then we'll see how in future NDCs they'll build upon these examples. Next slide, please. And a quick case study to show how countries are evolving. And Brazil provides us with a very inspiring example where in their last NDC in 2023, they included a number of key initiatives like a zero methane program, methane strategy, with some specific goals in terms of how much waste would be treated. And then next slide, please. Brazil is one of the countries that has already provided its new NDC 3.0. And in that NDC, we see a very significant stride forward, building upon its previous commitments. And there are some key lessons that CCAC has evaluated, where what we see already is a country that is willing to transition from its foundational targets to establish more comprehensive strategies and legislative frameworks, also enhancing the integration of waste sector methane into their broader climate policies and into economic planning, and demonstrating really an increased ambition and willingness to be specific in how they will address waste emissions, aligning with national efforts to address the global climate goals. So we're looking forward to also seeing other countries evolving in this regard. Next slide, please. So this QR code will take you to the NDC guidance, where you can download the methane document, or if you're interested also in others. At the end, I'll tell you a little bit more about some of the other NDC webinars that we have coming up. But for now, that's a summary of the CCAC's support through its guidance. And Marco, you can Thank you very much for your help with that. And now I turn the floor, I think, back to Donovan to present our next speaker.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to introduce Carolina then to speak briefly on, again, her position from Global Methane Hub, which many of you will know is doing fantastic work on methane in particular. Carolina is the Waste and Circular Economy Program Director and probably needs no introduction to a lot of you. So Carolina, I'll pass straight over to you for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to be fast because I know we are kind of short time. So thank you for the invitation. Yes, really happy to see a lot of our partners here and also new potential partners, right, to work together on this waste sector and how to address methane emissions. We know methane has contributed to 40% of recent net global warming. And as Donovan said during his presentation, waste sector is around 20% of the methane emissions. And the good thing is that we do have an opportunity that is cost effective to reduce methane emission in this decade and the next one on the waste sector. And what we want to discuss today is how to consider organic waste as a climate issue, right? And how to use the opportunities that we do have because of the climate discussion. We know the problem, right? We have rapid urbanization, population growth, food and sanitation demand that are driving organic waste accumulation. And as Donovan mentioned before, also, we are disposing this organic waste in landfills and dumps, and also sometimes burning this, which is not the solution. And we are facing a lot of challenges because of this, right? We have an opportunity also to raise awareness and to improve inventories and make more transparent and robust commitment regarding methane emissions because of this new era of accountability based on satellite and remote sense data, right? We were talking about some information from IMEO. We have also carbon mapper satellites, methane sat, and DAG sat, and so on, working on the waste sector and also on the oil and gas sector. Particularly for the waste sector, we have this waste methane assessment platform where you can see at national, city, and site level emissions and also decision tools. And why this is important? Because through artificial intelligence and a huge network of partners, what we can do with this is to have a good idea on the emissions that we have from the landfills and why those emissions are occurring. Is this because we are like the capture biogas system and, for example, energy generation is not working? Is it because the open side where we are disposing the waste is too big and we need to work on that? Those type of things is how we are driving data into action, right? Because it is not enough, as we know, to have data. What we need to do is to drive action. And
Carolina,
when we talk about, yes?
I'm so sorry to interrupt. It seems that your slides are not passing. Could you click on the full screen and try again, or maybe
sorry.
There you go. Thank you. Right. Sorry about the
there
interruption.
It is. Now you're seeing you see how I'm moving the slide?
We see we see the change, but could you click on the button to put full screen so that it is bigger?
Oh, sorry. It looks bigger there now. Oh my God, sorry. Is now okay?
It's still showing as sort of as the edit version of the slide.
Let me do it again. Maybe if not, Mark, I don't know why we're having problems, right? We did try this. Let me do it again.
It's Friday and the technology is already ready for the weekend.
Probably they know, right?
Yeah. All of the little.
Are you seeing my screen like, or no?
We see it in editing mode, not in the slide
Mark,
share
do you
mode.
want to? Yeah. Do you want to share the screen? I don't know what's. Let me do it my last times. I'm so sorry.
It's please don't apologize. It's technology. Sometimes It's great when it works and sometimes can be
Now I'm
finicky.
sharing my screen. Do you see it like now, like the slide, or it's still in? Do you
We
see my
see
screen?
it. We see it in edit. There we go. Now it's in full. Now it's in
Oh,
full size
great.
mode. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to share the slides after the meeting, so don't worry, you're going to have this information, but what I was talking about is regarding satellites, the information that we have. Here is what I was mentioned regarding the waste map and the opportunity that we have in order to go deep on the plumes that we are detecting and have a good idea on where the emissions are happening and why, right? That's the real opportunity. And of course, use this information in order to improve emission factors, activity data, and improve inventories and MRV systems, right? As I was saying, when we talk about the waste sector, for sure, we need to talk about the landfills, right? The wastewater treatment systems, and also organic waste segregation, right? And the thing here is that we know what we need to do, right? And thank you also for the comment in the chat regarding this is not only about methane or biogas capture and energy generation. We need to consider other type of actions like oxidation, bioremediation, etc. Right? The thing is that we need to implement the actions during this decade because it is now when we do have the opportunity in the sector to be cost effective and to reduce methane emission. On the wastewater treatment system approach, the sludge is an issue that we need to consider. We need to discuss about how to implement anaerobic sludge digestion and maybe, and this is something that is going on right now in some countries, co-digestion considering the sludge and also the organic waste. And of course, what we really want is to implement organic waste segregation and management like composting, anaerobic digestion, black soldier flies, etc., with an important involvement of waste pickers and communities. We need to recognize that in this sector, we need to work together with the communities that are based on ground, right? Things are moving as we heard in the previous presentation, so I'm not going to go deep on this, but countries are setting new targets on national policies and specific sectoral policies, and we need to leverage that for the new NDCs and also the biennial transparency report, right? To demonstrate that we do have an opportunity in the sector, and this is happening, right? I'm not talking only about the global north. We do have examples in the global south, in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, and also in China, right? And when we talk about the sector, it is really important to consider that the action that we do want, and Donovan also shared that, is food loss and waste prevention and reuse. Here we had previously an issue because we didn't have methodologies to analyze the potential of methane mitigation from these actions, right? But now we have been working with different organizations. Now we have the Global Action Drive on Food Loss and Waste, and we have methodologies to do the analysis on methane mitigation, and also, tools and instruments to use this to improve the actions on food donation, for example, and or animal feed, which is also an option, right? Another opportunity here is how we link the activities that we are doing and that we want to consider in our NDCs with the demand, right? We are going to have compost, we are going to have soil improvers, etc. And we can use that in order to improve soils, in order to use that for forest, etc., right? For agriculture and for animal feeds and other things. And we need to work on how to drive that into use market development and the demand that we are going to have on that. And we need to set some instruments to drive that action. And I'm ending, and I'm sorry for being fast, but I know that we're short on time. So organic waste is a climate issue. We have the opportunity this year with the new NDCs, as Ana Maria was saying also, but also with the second biennial transparency report that we need to present next year. In the biennial transparency report, we have the inventories, but we also have the projections, right? And when we talk about projections and we talk about sectoral projections, we need to include specific actions on organic waste management, segregation, and food loss and waste prevention and recovery. What is also important to consider here, and this is an opportunity, when we talk about the sector, we must consider the national and subnational collaboration. There you see a map with our network working at national and subnational engagement. We have the Lowering Organic Waste Methane Partnership with CCAC and a lot of different organizations that are available to support at national and subnational level to have action in the waste sector. And this is only an idea, but it's really important. When we talk about the waste sector, we are not only talking about mitigation, but also adaptation. By the end of the year, we're going to present our results from a collaboration with organizations based in Chile and in Ghana regarding the fire risk that we do have at landfills because of the organic waste disposal and the methane accumulation, right? This is also a way to include the sector in our new commitments in the NDCs and also in the biennial transparency report, which includes mitigation and adaptation, right? So this is a framework and a methodology that we are building, and that's going to be available by the end of the year also to consider, probably not for this NDC, it could be mentioned there, but for the biennial transparency report and for the next process that we are going to have. So thank you very much. And methane, as you know, is our emergency brake on climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina. Thank you for that comprehensive assessment and just adding in those perspectives as well. Okay, so we have two short case studies now, one from Chile and one from Liberia. We have a colleague joining us from the Ministry of Environment, Kevin. There he is, Kevin Basel Baraza. Great to see you, Kevin. We'll probably go just, please, people use the chat in the Q&A and we'll answer those questions as we go along. We'll probably go a little bit over the hour if that's okay for those that are able to stay on us. Otherwise, we are recording and we will share the presentation. So we don't want to squash up too much time for Kevin and then Darius. So we'll go a little bit over time just to make up for some of the time we lost earlier on with some technical issues. Kevin, I'll pass over to you to share the experience of Chile, a real global leader in many respects in this space. So it's great to have your words and for you to share your experience.
Thank you, Donovan, and it's nice to see you, and also Carolina. She was my former boss several years ago, so it's nice to see her. I think I'm sharing my screen right now, so just as I need a confirmation if you are seeing like the presentation mode.
Yes, that's great, Kevin.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I will be really short in this. So for Chilean people, it's easy to speak fast, so it's not a problem. So so the idea of this presentation is to give a little of resume of what is Chile is doing right now. So this is I hope this present gives you a real quick view of Chile's now NDC targets and also how we are addressing methane emissions. So a little bit of a little bit of context. We have this climate change framework law that's coming in 2021. I think that is the more important instrument that we have in Chile because we have a lot of actions that were being and doing in the past year, but all this was like more like an international commitment. So with this law, all these instruments or these compromises are becoming like legal in Chile, and we have a legal responsibility of doing this right, and we have a real international compromise. Like this international compromise becomes really important to Chile and I right now. So in this law we have a lot of regulations, but the main the key instrument for these discussions. So we have the NDC and also the long-term climate strategy that are like legal documents now in Chile. So this is like an obligation right now. With this NDC and long-term strategy, we also have to address this. We have mitigation and adaptation sectoral plans that includes a lot of action and compromises to like comply with the all these compromises that we have in NDC and also in the long-term climate strategy. So with these sectoral plans, also we have some national action plans. So we have this NDC and long-term strategy that are like national instrument. Then we have this sectoral instrument that comes from the Ministry of the government of Chile, and then we have like these subnational action plans that are come for local governance. So all this information, all these instruments are using information from the this national GHG inventory that we developed several years, and we also comply with the Paris Agreement and the MRT framework. Also, we have some MRV system, and also we have some projection system that helps all this instrument to get the best information that we can have, and also to aim for the maximum ambition in all the climate policies. Now we have like the NDC for 2020. That is the current instrument that we have. So this a little bit of structure of this, of the component. We have the mitigation component, the adaptation component, and also the integration, that is mitigation and adaptation measure or compromises to like comply with the NDC. So it seems a little bit old, but it is the actual instrument that we have right now. And the more important thing for mitigation actions is that we set up a carbon budget for the period of the NDC. That is that like is a more ambitious thing that we can have, because constraints a lot of action that we are implementing and we can implement it. So it is a big issue that we have this carbon budget as a main contribution in the NDC. So then in 2022, we have an strengthening of the NDC that have a concept of socio-ecological just transition. Also, we have a climate policy update. And more important for this discussion, we have an explicit commitment about methane emissions that in very few words, we set up a contribution to like decrease the tendency of emission or get a peak of emissions by 2025 of methane emissions. So now we have in the current NDC, we have a carbon budget, and also we have a focusing action on methane emissions. So how are the emissions in Chile? That is like my major core here. We have this from the last national GHG emission inventory. Also, we have all these sectors for the UNFCCC, and we can see that we account for emissions since the 90s to the 2022. And if we see this same all the emissions, these bars here, if we see it in terms of GHG gases, we have that methane emissions is like 14% of the total emissions in the 2022. It seems few, but it is important to take action on this 40% emissions. So how are the methane emissions? We're getting more close to this. So in 2022, we have this pie chart that shows all the emissions where they come. So basically, we have that the half of the emission or the methane emission in Chile comes from the waste sector, and almost all of this all of this methane emission comes from the solid waste disposal. So it is really an issue in Chile, the disposal of waste in terms of GHG, in terms of methane emission, sorry. So if we see the time series of waste emissions, we can see this. So this is a pretty a pretty regular thing to see in methane emissions that are coming up. So we have constant growth of emission due to population and sanitary regulations. So in Chile, we have a constant growth of population, and also since most of the regulation said that uh, waste that needed to be in sanitary waste landfills. So we have a lot of issues with that. So we have a lot of methane production from the landfills. Also, we can see that in the middle of the time series, we have some methane recovery and flaring that are coming really strong early in the 2010. And also we have a fewer a participation of the wastewater emissions that are decreasing in the at the end of the time series because the growth of solid waste disposal. So, as I said, and also all of you said that solid waste disposal are the major problem and regarding methane emissions globally, and also in Chile is really important. So, in our current NDC, this is in the final step of developing. We have like a public consultation of the NDC, and now we are preparing the final document to be presented like in June. I think we are going to give this new NDC of Chile. So it is really it is really close. So in our NDC we have the same components from the 2020, and also we have considered the global stock take, and so we have a mitigation component, and also we have an adaptation component, and also an integration component. So as a in a, in the in the preliminary project, we have a set up a carbon budget for the period that comes new in this NDC, that is 2031 and 2035. Also, we have goals for short-lived climate pollutants or short-lived climate forcers. And also we have, that is, it's really important that we have a new component or an extra component with circular economy that is mainly focused on organic waste valorization, and also it is a lot of we have a lot of focus on waste valorization. So it is really important to Chile to mitigate the methane emissions. So how we are addressing this? Now we have this standard producer responsibility law, that is the ley rep in Spanish, that is set up several things to several compromises to valorize to organic waste valorizations. So we have a lot of target with that come from carton and for liquids, metal, paper and paperboard, plastic and glass. We have all this. That is this is published. This is the Diario Oficial is the final presentation of our legal document in Chile. So this is already published. And also we have this national organic waste strategy that is NROI in Spanish, that takes a lot of actions or planning to address the organic waste disposal in Chile. So, for example, it takes in consideration that more than half of the total waste disposed in Chile is organic. And also with this, we set up a goals for 2040 to recover municipal organic waste. Now we are in 1%, and we want to go to 66%. Also, we are working on a law that prohibits disposal of organic waste that is currently in process. I'm going to talk about a little bit of that. And also we have some intermediate goals for 2030. So we have, like I said, we have a recover of 30% of municipal waste. Also, we have some we have some delivery of this composting bin to several several schools, and also we have to different households. So we have a lot of actions on waste, organic waste valorization. So but more important than this, we have also the National Organic Waste Law that is currently is currently in the Congress of Chile. This in pretty few words, we this law enhanced the waste valorization and also wanted to or aims to reduce waste generation and also waste separation and strange governance about the how you are addressing organic waste in Chile. So to sum it up, for this, we have like Chile has reinforced, has this climate change framework law that has reinforced the climate change compromises in Chile. Just to take all these international compromises to give like a local legal responsibility in the government of Chile, and also we have a strong compromise in the NDC included. Methane in a particular compromise, and also Chile, according to Chile's official information, we have a lot of issues regarding methane emission that more than half of the emission comes from solid waste disposal. So to address this, we have waste-related policies that are being implemented, like the REP law, and also the organic waste strategy, and also the organic waste law. So that would be for me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And what I really enjoyed from your presentation is something which came up in the Q&A and chat as well. So you might want to look at some of the comments there. But it was the bringing together of climate goals with national policies and solid waste management policies and programs as well, and how those are now becoming much more complementary in Chile over time. So there have been enormous benefits for the solid waste management industry and the approach and the policy development because of its links to climate goals and the opportunities and evidence that provides. And likewise, because of what's happening at the policy level in terms of EPR, in terms of working with stakeholders, there's a much stronger evidence base and there's a much stronger support base for the NDC. So thanks for sharing that, Kevin. Really enjoyed it. Okay, I've just put a little note on. We're just going to run to 15 past the hour. We're recording this. We'll share the presentations. We had some technical difficulties, but I really want to hear from Darius, and a number of you have asked, yes, this is great, but what about sub-Saharan Africa? What about emerging economies in Africa? What can we learn from them? And Darius will present to you some really exciting stuff from Liberia, which is really seeing itself in a leadership position in this space, and which is demonstrating what can be achieved even at a much lower level of income and with less capacity, but also with as much ambition as anywhere else. So Darius, it's a great pleasure to welcome you. Look forward to your presentation.
Yes, thank you. Marco, can you please beam me up?
Yeah,
I don't
sure.
want to
I'll
cause
just
any
beam
further
up.
delays. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Darius Barrow. I head Green Life West Africa, which is a NGO that actually implemented the methane roadmap for Liberia under the Climate and Clean Air Coalition. Next slide, please. Yes, Green Life is a regional NGO working in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Ghana. I'm not going to go too deep, but you'll get the slides after. But let's just jump into the methane targets on waste. Yes. So why methane matters to the waste sector? Because waste comprises 53.7% of the methane emissions in Liberia, as compared to the energy and transport sector, which is 27.5%, the agriculture sector, which is 18.8%. Next slide, please. We plan to reduce methane emissions 30% by 2030 as part of our methane pledge. We're using a whole of government multi-stakeholder approach with the line ministries all on board. The two main city governments are Monrovia and Painesville. Of course, we have the community-based enterprises, civil society, private sector, and this is all headed by the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. We plan to reduce methane emissions from 21.92 gigatons to 15.26 gigatons by 2030, below business as usual. So that's our main target. The methane emissions from the waste sector is 21.92 gigatons, and we plan to reduce it down to 15.26 gigatons, which is 30%. Next slide. Structure of the roadmap. The roadmap that we developed under the CCAC consists of the baseline assessment, sector emissions, identifying the sources and the different risks. Of course, then we have the mitigation measures, which we're going to use to reduce the methane. Data collection, the monitoring, reporting, and verification using the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change standards, and working against our not against, but working in line with our NDCs, and also finding money. That's our biggest challenge, which I'll talk about more as we go along. Next slide, please. Okay, here is the profile of Liberia's waste sector. The country is not that big. We are 5.5 million people. We generate a lot of waste though, and it's increasing because of urbanization and population growth. We also have a high quantity of organic waste. Up to 52% of our waste is organic. And as I mentioned, the two major cities are Monrovia and Painesville. Painesville is a suburban city right next to the capital city of Monrovia. Of course, we have other counties and cities across the country, but these two, Painesville and Monrovia, generate the most waste in the country. There's also a problem of open dumping, open burning, burying, and unmanaged landfills. Now, Monrovia alone generates 1,174 tons per day, and we only collect 3,330 tons. So we're only collecting 28% about of the waste that's generated per day. So that is a very big challenge. There's also a challenge of weak enforcement of waste regulations. Households are also not separating their waste from the source. That's another challenge. Next slide, please. Here are, we have several, please go back one. Another. Okay, now go next slide. Okay, now, as you can see, the pictures speak for themselves. In Monrovia, there's indiscriminate disposal practices, is very, very, very severe, and we have a very urgent crisis to manage. Next slide. The crisis goes even further to our only landfill, which actually has the capacity to hold 270,000 cubic meters of waste, but now is holding 325,000 cubic meters, which is 55,000 more than what it should hold. And the height of this landfill is like 20 meters, dangerously high. Next slide, please. Okay, here are the measures. We have several targets, but these are the major targets from the roadmap pertaining to the waste sector. We have to develop new transfer stations, at least 5 for both Monrovia and Painesville. We also have to develop new landfills. Like I said, we currently have one that is dangerously overused. So we have proposed in the roadmap, and the government has agreed to have 3 landfills. When you see Montserrado and Margibi, that's basically talking about Monrovia and Painesville. Those are the 2 counties where Monrovia and Painesville are located. We also plan to provide waste bags for households so they can separate their waste from the source, separate the organic waste from the plastic waste and other forms of waste. That's how we can recycle the plastic, turn the organic waste into compost. So we want to procure and distribute 300,000 bags to households. And that's just for starters. Like I said, the country has 5.5 million people. So 300,000 bags is just a drop in the bucket. We also most definitely want to encourage the private sector to invest and create jobs. And for starters, we're looking at 30,000 jobs. And that's just for starters, jobs to be created through private sector investment so more people can be on the task to reduce waste and manage waste properly in Liberia. Next slide, please. Okay, we also have an issue with wastewater. We had a system, it was an anaerobic system that was actually turning waste into renewable energy. And that was before the war. For those who don't know, Liberia had a civil crisis for more than a decade. It started in 1989 and went all the way to 2003. So a lot of our infrastructure was severely damaged. So right now we're using an aerobic system that's even causing more problems. As such, some of the wastewater is being dumped into the Atlantic Ocean. So is that bad? So the solution as part of the roadmap is to return to the anaerobic system where we can even turn that wastewater into biogas. Next slide, please. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be doing data collection. That's one of the data collection is actually a problem in Liberia. Doing the methane roadmap, that was one of our challenges, getting data from different stakeholders and government ministries. So we've highlighted it as one of the biggest challenges that we have to overcome. We have 41 indicators in our methane roadmap. A bulk of them are about waste management. We also have the methane technical working group, which was established under the CCAC methane roadmap project. Next slide, please. This is pretty much our implementation plan. The methane roadmap was just completed in 2024. So this year, we're working with the EPA and other stakeholders like Monrovia City Corporation and Painesville City Corporation to improve our data collection system and mobilize funds. By 2027, we want to see these different infrastructures upgraded, and we want to have a midterm review of the roadmap. And by 2030, we want to do a final evaluation and scale up whatever is achieved for the next 5 years. Next slide, please. These are basically the steps I just mentioned, so we can continue. Okay, here are the key challenges. Percentages of waste not being collected. As I mentioned, 71% of the waste is not being collected. We only have one landfill that's overused. We only have 2 transfer stations. We need at least 7, so we need additional 5. Limited logistics. Also, lack of facilities for waste storage. We have a national solid waste management policy, but the budget needs to be supported. Next slide. And here is some of the costing when it comes to the implementation of the methane roadmap with regards to the waste sector. It's about $2 million to support the operations and get the equipment to improve or upgrade the landfill I spoke about. It's $21 million to establish a second landfill. Also, transfer stations, the 5 that I mentioned, will cost about $15 million. Material recovery facilities will cost of about $45 million. So as you can see, we have a long list of different priorities that cost money over the next 5 years. So to actually achieve our targets as per the methane roadmap of Liberia, with regard to only the waste sector, we will need about $124 million. Next slide, please. Thank you.
No, thank you, Darius. That was excellent. And Green Life are doing some fantastic work in the region. And I'd really encourage people to learn more about Green Life's work as well. What I really liked about Darius' presentation is he demonstrated that ambition could occur at all sorts of levels of economic development and capacity. But there's a clear understanding now in Liberia of the waste management crisis and its impact on the environment, but also in terms of emissions, but on quality of life, particularly as he was talking about a lot of the uncontrolled fires over the past year on the major landfill site. And you can see that Liberia is developing its data capacity and through its methane roadmap, a strategy to deal with waste as well. What I also liked was the focus on jobs and job creation from doing things differently, which I think is critical and a critical co-benefit for a number of countries. And finally, the focus on finance as well is very important because, of course, the NDCs give an opportunity for countries to place unconditional and conditional targets, and those conditional targets can be priced. And some people would say that the current NDC round is a really unique opportunity to actually create finance plans around climate goals. And what I can see in Liberia is that they're starting to put a price on what is needed in terms of infrastructure to be able to meet their NDC targets and their ambitions. And they're seeing the NDCs as an opportunity to basically cost those targets, particularly the more ambitious targets, and to think about NDCs as a strategy document for climate finance. Thank you very much. I'm now going to pass back to Anna Maria to help finish up the session. But thanks again, Darius and Kevin and Carolina for some fantastic presentations.
Brilliant. Thank you, Donovan. And yes, also thank you, Carolina. Thank you, Darius and Kevin. Donovan has put together a stellar panel of people, and also the participants. Thank you all for being a part of today. You've made some excellent comments and good questions in the Q&A. We will try to follow up with some of those because we really do appreciate your engagement in the conversation and encourage you to continue that conversation moving forward. The last word I would like to leave everyone with is just an invitation to attend any one of our upcoming NDC enhancement webinars. Coming up in June, we have one focusing on the cooling sector, looking at reduction of HFCs, as well as energy efficiency and how to ensure equitable access to cooling. and including that in NDCs. Our third webinar will be on black carbon and air quality in July, and we will wrap up coming back to the methane sector with a deep dive into the agriculture subsector, looking at particularly at livestock in mid-July. So please sign up for those. You can sign up at any one of our to any one of those on our website, and we thank you for your time. And again, thanks to the speakers. Hope everyone has a wonderful weekend and look forward to seeing you at future webinars. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank
Have
you.
a great weekend to
you.
all. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.